Hey beautiful souls, what's up? So in this video I want to break down something that's rarely ever talked about, and that is the 3 stages of an awakening that we go through. And this is something that I experience very viscerally, and I feel like I'm in a place now where I want to share this because I feel like it's important. So we have 3 stages that we go through, and that is first the activation stage, which is the ignition. This is where the energy starts to surge. This is the wild initiations. Then you have stage 2, which is the awakening. This is the expansion. It's the highs, it's the downloads, and it's the ego crumbling. And then you have integration, which is the grounding, the embodiment, the part that most people resist. And each of these stages, they serve a purpose. But most people actually get stuck chasing the activations or actually thinking that they're awake before they've integrated. And I've been here, so this is why I want to share this. So let's break it down. So we got activation, right, which is the first stage. This is the spark that lights the fire, okay? This is when everything kicks off. It's when a certain frequency, ability, or remembrance is triggered within you. And for me, that was my activation. That's when my Kundalini came online. That was my activation. It was my Kundalini coming online, which was this overwhelming amount of energy surging through my physical vessel, which was very overwhelming. And then I had light language that started pouring through me, something I had never learned. I didn't even really believe in at the time, but somehow it activated through me, and before I knew it, I was bringing through all types of different light languages through me. I also started in this stage, I started activating others just by being around them, whether it was their own Kundalini energy, activating their light language, or past life visions and remembrance started to happen for people who either watched my videos or were in my space. And honestly, this was more than just energy. It was my first real encounter also in this activation phase with the divine feminine, dark feminine energy. I started to really, this was the first time that I really came in touch with this energy, both its dark and light expression. So for the first time in my life, I felt this surge of my own sexual energy moving through me. And not something as taboo or distorted, but I felt this pure life force energy, this sexual energy, but it was God energy. It was godly. It was creation energy. It was the pulse of the universe moving through my vessel. Words can't even really express it. You know, it's something you have to experience. And it was intoxicating, okay? I felt a massive amount of liberation in my body when my essence started to come online, especially because my activation came right after my divorce, in a time where I was completely fragmented. I had felt so confined, I was so suppressed, I was so disconnected from my truth, from my essence. So when this activation happened and I came online, it was like, holy fuck, not only could I breathe, but oh my God, I didn't know that any of this existed within me. I didn't know that I could feel what I was feeling. I could feel the truth that had always been inside of me, but at the same time, it was confusing as hell. It felt intoxicating, it was exhilarating, but it was overwhelming and disorienting. And that's because everything was happening at once. And what happens when everything happens at once? When the energy comes online before your human mind fully understands? Not good. That's also what happens when we're flooded with power, with sensation and remembrance, yet we don't fully have the grounding to fully integrate all of it. So when so much is awakening within you, activating within you simultaneously, and your mind hasn't had the ability to catch up to process it, which honestly, it doesn't even have the capability to do that, okay? This is where things can get really messy. And so activation, what I've come to learn is that activation gives you access, right? But it doesn't immediately give you mastery. This is the initiation, and the initiation is where many people get lost, because power without grounding can become distortion. And also, remembrance without integration leads to illusion, and awakening too fast without a foundation can burn you out. It will burn you out. It burned me out. And so this is the first stage, okay? This is just the activation stage. And what happens in the activation? This is the stage where, as I shared with you a little bit of my own activation state, this is where a dormant energy, abilities, or remembrance is triggered within you. And it can be spontaneous or intentional through energy work, meditation, plant medicine, a teacher, or even a life event. This is where you can feel energy surges, downloads, and sudden shifts in perception, okay? During the activation stage, this is where you may open to new intuitive ability, past life memories, or really come in touch with your multidimensionality. Some examples of this activations are some that I shared with you, like the Kundalini awakening and the feeling of energies rise spontaneously through your body, light language activations, past life activations. People, which also happened to me, you can have galactic or higher self activations where you start receiving or communicating with your galactic aspects, or receiving energetic attunements from higher dimensional aspects of yourself. But here's the thing, just because you're activated, it doesn't mean, again, that you're integrated. And when we're going through this, we don't realize this. So this is why so many people get stuck here. They start chasing the activations without ever actually learning to manage and master the energy that has just been activated within them. And so think of activation, as I mentioned before, like the spark. It's like going into a room and turning on the switch, turning on the lights. But turning on the switch is just the beginning. And then at some point you enter the second stage, which is the awakening, okay? This is the stage of expansion, and this is a stage where also illusions are going to be shattered. The awakening in this stage is not just about feeling the energy, but it's about seeing through the illusions that you once believed were real. Okay, so at first, this phase is amazing. You start getting downloads left and right. You realize that the world isn't what it is or what you thought it was. You feel like you're on top of the universe because you're receiving so much wisdom. You can access states of momentary unity consciousness and bliss, and there's just so much coming through you, and at the same time so much that you're seeing through. But then comes the shadow work in this stage. The awakening is actually all about the shadow. It's just that you don't realize that that is what it's about, because there's so much other stuff happening between the activations and all the downloads and the wisdoms, and you're seeing through the illusions. But this stage really is about the shadow work. So for me, oops, I didn't mean to tap that. But anyways, for me, the awakening was not a straight line, okay? It started off with bliss, downloads, rapid expansions. I got to peek behind the curtain. I got to see and connect with different aspects of my multidimensional self, access memories, codes, and wisdom that some people may never touch in this lifetime. But then comes the false light, okay? In this stage, it's very easy for you to get stuck in the false light. This is the part where awakening can trick you into believing that you have arrived. This is the part where you think you've mastered it before you've actually even dismantled your old programming. The awakening stage is where you have a lot of awareness, okay? You have a lot of multidimensional awareness. You have a lot of awareness of a lot of things. You have a lot of awareness, but that's it. The awareness does not equal that you've started to dismantle your old programmings. So the part where you're still carrying these distortions, right? But you don't yet fully see them. And if you do see them, you're not actually dismantling them, right? Because a lot of the awakening in this process happens through the mental still. Because like I said, in the activation, so much opened up, and depending how big your awakening was, like how much of a surge of energy broke through you, and how much you were ready for it, like how fragmented were you, how much trauma did you have, how much shadow work had you already done prior to your awakening, it's going to determine, right? And so with the awakening, with the activation and then the awakening, the mind can't comprehend all of this, and so the mind is going to have a fucking shit show, because it's going to try to understand, comprehend, put it in box, try to label it, identify things, and you don't even realize that in this stage you just entered another layer of the matrix, which is the spiritual matrix. Okay, so there's so much energy surging through me, and so I was magnetizing so much because I was leaking so much of my Kundalini energy, and I was just magnetizing people and things and opportunities and experience to me. You know, people started to see my aura and see things reflected in me. You know, people would channel for me. Some people would see like this divine mother energy in me. They would see me as their guide. You know, I started to channel like the light language and the energy activations, and I was good at it. And the thing is that this wasn't false. The power and the things that I was experiencing, the remembrance was all real. However, the identity wrapped around it was not yet clear, okay? It was muddled. And that's because awakening is not embodiment. And this is where I was telling you that this is a stage where the mind is still so much involved. So this is still where people are playing a role of being spiritual. You know, it's the clothes, it's the identity. They're playing a role. This is a time too where people can believe that they're Jesus, or they're Mother Mary, or they're Isis, or they're the incarnation of Metatron, or whatever. And this is because they haven't fully integrated yet. They're receiving a lot of information, they're getting access, and maybe they're seeing behind the curtain, but it doesn't all make sense just yet. Because awakening, again, is not embodiment, because knowing is not the same as living it. And because I was still in the process of meeting the shadows that had not yet revealed themselves, so what happened was that I crashed, because that's what the awakening does. The awakening is like bringing all this stuff up. And the thing is that as the mind is involved in the process of awakening, if the mind hasn't surrendered again, it gets very messy. And so for me, I crashed and I lost everything. I had this huge tower moment which needed to happen in order for me to exit the awakening stage and enter the integration stage. And in losing everything, I realized how much of my awakening had been an illusion. But it was an illusion that I needed to go through. It's still part of the journey, because the truth is, awakening is the collapse of illusions. But collapsing illusions is also not the same as mastering them. And mastery, well, what I now know is that that comes only with integration. Awakening and the activation stage, this is where a lot of people stay stuck. This is where people stay in loops, you know, and especially when you start involving plant medicine, and especially because, you know, there's been such a surge of plant medicine in the last couple of years, and plant medicine, like everything, has a place. But here's the thing, when you're already going through an awakening, if you're someone who's going to a lot of plant medicine ceremonies, and you're doing ceremonies back to back every couple of months, you're only getting yourself deeper stuck in this awakening phase, okay? Because no matter how much awareness you have, no matter how many gifts you activate, without integration, which is embodiment, you don't have anything. So integration is the stage, the last stage, the stage 3, for example. It's, I say for example, because it's an ongoing thing, but this is the next stage. This is like the actual awakening, okay? It's integration. This is where the real work begins. Integration is where shit gets real. It's the part that no one wants to talk about, because let's be honest, most people don't want to integrate, okay? They want to change to the next activations. They want to stay in the high of awakening, because a lot of us are wanting to escape the human experience. I get it. I've been there. I've played all the roles. I came here to experience the gamut of it. And so I speak from experience and not judgment, because I've been in it. A lot of people don't want to do the work of actually embodying everything that they've learned. And so for me, integration was something that I stepped into after my awakening, and integration came as a result of having a massive collapse. I had to literally lose everything, my entire foundation, all of my identity, all of my roles, my money, people, everything had to crumble right in front of me in order for me to then actually ground and integrate, okay? And so this is what happens if you don't do this process naturally. Like, you will be forced into integration. And so for me, like I said, it was losing everything. I lost my true foundation, and And that was the best thing that could have happened to me, because it gave me an opportunity to start to ground, to start to really trust myself again, to really start to embody the wisdom that I gained, but from a really solid foundation. So in this stage of integration for me, it's like it's no longer needing to perform my spirituality. It's letting go of false identities, false light, anything that's ungrounded. It's really about merging back into my human experience without feeling lost in it. And so what happens during integration? This is really the stage where spiritual truths stop being something that you know, intellectually, and it's become something that you are, okay? You just are it. And this stage is also where your nervous system, your body and your mind start to adjust. They're able to hold the higher frequencies without being overwhelmed, without burning out and crashing. And in the stage of integration, here is where you, instead of seeking new experiences, you begin to fully live from the truth of what you already are. Okay, you're not chasing the highs anymore. You're merging your spiritual wisdom with human practicality. And you no longer see those two separate. You don't see the human experience as less than, and being spiritual or multidimensional as more. It's not one or the other, it's both. It's you blending both worlds. Because after all, we came here to have a human experience. We came here to bring divinity into our vessels and to live a fully embodied whole life as a fully awakened human being. Okay? And so in this stage, you're not chasing the activations or the highs anymore. You are becoming the embodiment of your energy. You are becoming embodied in all of the behind the curtains, everything you got to see, all these identities that you were playing out, the shaman and the Native American and the Jesus energy and whatever it is that the fairy realms and all of this stuff, which they all are real. But it's not from this like wishy-washy space. You're able to, that's all part of your energy. Whatever you tapped into is all part of you. But it needs to be integrated so that you're able to embody your energy very cohesively, congruently, harmoniously through you. And so some examples of integration is, instead of needing to meditate for hours to feel connected, you feel attuned and connected all the time, naturally. Again, like I've said a million times in this video, you're no longer chasing mystical experiences. You let them flow when needed. So you're not doing the ceremonies anymore. You're not needing to do all this spiritual stuff anymore. You may even feel a little bit like repelled by that stuff, because you now see the distortions in it, and it's not from a judgment, but from a like, okay, I've already been there, I've already played with those energies, and you don't need that anymore. The mystical experiences will naturally find you when they need to find you. They'll be spontaneous, and if and when you're being called to something, you will know. It will be a natural call from within yourself, but it's not from the mental, and it's not from this ego place. Because remember, the awakening stage is where you're trapped in the spiritual matrix. Like, the activation is where you kind of broke through the matrix, the 3D matrix, right? Because it's like, oh wow, you start to activate your gifts and your multidimensionality and all this stuff. And in the awakening stage, you feel like, oh, you made it, but it's just another trap. It's another aspect of the matrix. This is where you get trapped in the spiritual matrix, spiritual ego. So you have to break through that layer. And so in the integration stage, you're no longer reacting to life's triggers. You're able to hold space for them with deep neutrality. You're able to see if something happens in your reality and there is a trigger, you can hold space for it because you know what its purpose is. Okay, you can see what it's serving you beyond the story, beyond whatever is happening. And in the integration stage, this is where your presence naturally can shift those around you without even words, just by you being. There's no trying, there's no I need to help, I need to save anybody. You just are. You're living life, and just because of who you are, your embodied presence, your embodied energy can naturally just shift to space. And integration is not a stage you finish, all right? Because we're always looking for like a destination, a final arrival, and we are literally energy in motion. We're creation, and creation never stops creating. We're in a constant state of contraction and expansion. So integration is more, think of it as more of a way of living, all right? So this is the full cycle: the activation, the awakening, and the integration. So activation is the spark, awakening is the expansion, and integration is the embodiment, which would be the contraction, because once we've expanded, we have to contract so we can embody. We have to go within. So we're expanding outward, and then we contract so that we can embody. So activation is the spark, awakening is the expansion, and integration is the contraction into embodiment. And the truth is that most people never make it past activation and awakening, you know? We end up just chasing these activations without truly integrating it. We get lost in the awakening thinking, we've arrived. And we resist the integration process because it feels too slow, too human, and too ordinary. But that is exactly what you need. After so much expansion, we have to be able to contract back into the physical, into the here and now. We have to anchor the wisdom. We have to anchor all these activations. All the awareness has to be brought down. And so true mastery is in the integration. It's when you no longer try to be something, you just are. And you cannot become that which you are without dropping into the here and now. You cannot avoid the human experience. You came here to be a human being. And so there has to be a contraction, and integration can feel very slow. Integration is you coming back into the human experience and doing the ordinary and doing the mundane, and sometimes it's going to be taking responsibility, doing shit that you've been avoiding doing because you think that, you know, you want to be over here, and you think being over here is by staying in the ethers. But no matter how many activations you have, how many inspired visions, and how great you've been told you are, and how you're here to change the paradigm, you cannot change anything if you're not embodied. If you're not here, if you don't know how to master this physical reality, if you can't build, if you can't manifest in form, then this is why there's just a lot of beautiful souls, starseeds and light workers, who struggle with money, who struggle with creating their visions, with working, with making things happen, because they're avoiding the actual integration part, because it's not fun. It's the part where you have to take responsibility. It's the stuff where you actually have to put into practice that which you've learned. And it requires work, it requires discipline, and it requires you being in the physical. So yeah, that's what I have for you. And so I encourage you in this video to kind of just sit and assess with yourself and be honest with where are you right now within your own journey. And there's no right or wrong phase, only next steps on this journey. And like I said, this journey is never ending. We came here to experience, to create, to be alive, to be truly embodied, expressed beings. We are here to experience life, to express and to embody all of creation through us. And so if you're feeling stuck in an endless cycle of activations and awakening, well, maybe it's time to step into the next level, and maybe it's time to integrate. So I love you, and I'll talk to you guys soon.